All right. So for the next step, we'll actually work on this area a little bit more, as well as the backs of our legs, our hamstrings. We're going to do that standing. And in order to do that, we're going to roll up the yoga mat. So you can start with the end that's further away from the chair. Make sure that at least the front legs of the chair are on your mat so that your chair is not going to slide around on you. And as you roll up your yoga mat, it doesn't have to be a particularly shaped roll. It doesn't have to be a neat roll. What we're really doing is just getting a little height that we're going to use under our feet. You can also use a rolled blanket or towel if you don't have a mat or want to just use something else. So I'm going to come pretty close to my chair. And then I'm going to step up so that my toes, maybe the ball of my feet, are on the mat. My feet are about hip width apart. You might be closer or wider. That's fine. But my heels are definitely behind the roll part of the mat. I've got a double mat, so I'm lucky here, but you might be on the floor or wherever. So you have that little bit of an elevation, that same lesser angle. So this would be a 90-degree angle between my leg bone and my foot. And now I'm lessening that angle by lifting my toes. Press the toes firmly into the roll part of the mat, press the heels firmly back into the mat, and then start to hinge a little bit from your hip crease. So your hip crease is that part under your little front bone there, right where the top of your leg meets your pelvic girdle. And you can go down 45 degrees, you can go further, you can place your hands on the seat of your chair. It's fine to have a bend in the knees, because we're really going for that stretch in the feet. The bend in the knees will just change the degree of stretch in our hamstring. As much as possible, see if you can keep your back long, so not rounded this way or sloped this way. Send your hips toward the back. Push your weight back so that it stays over your heels rather than coming up into your toes. That's going to be really important for our dog pose. Your hands can also come up onto the back of the chair, and you can practice a little bit more extension, maybe looking for that direction of your head with your ears between your biceps that we practice seating. And then come on up. I'm going to unroll the mat a little bit just so it's a little further from my chair. And I'll step so that my heels are on the roll part of the mat. My toes come in front of that part of the mat. So this action is going to be more like what my downward facing dog is, because as I said, for most of us in our downward dog, our heels wind up being a little bit elevated, but we're sending them toward the back. So same thing in hinging from the hip, sending our hips back as we hinge in the front. And now I'm feeling this less in my ankle, because now my ankles are not really a less than 90-degree angle, but I'm really feeling this more in my hamstring, so helping my hamstring start to open up. Same thing as before, you can either do this with your hands on the seat of the chair, or you might like to play around with your hands on the back. I think I need to move my chair a little further away to do that. Sending your hips back, allowing your arms to be long. Keeping your armpits up, so not sagging at the armpits as you allow your torso or your head to come between the arms. Breathe. And then exhale, you can use your hands to help yourself back up. Unroll your mat and come back down to the floor. So we still are going to use the chair for a little bit more shoulder stretching, and then that same movement with our arm overhead, this time in a pose called puppy pose, kind of a precursor or an alternate or a variation on downward facing dog. But we'll start with the shoulder stretch. So turn toward your chair. We'll have the elbows on the chair, and the elbows are about shoulder width apart. Hands can be palms together or hands clasped, whatever more comfortable for you, which is a lot of your practice, whatever is more comfortable for you. So I place my elbows about shoulder width on the chair. I start to walk my knees back to walk my hips back. And then I'm either going to take my forehead down to the edge of the chair, or in front of the chair. I know I have the room to go in front, but I'll start with my forehead. So sending my hips back, they stay in the air, but they continue to go back. I'm going to first place my forehead on the edge of the chair. And already I can feel a stretch very much between my shoulder blades, but also along underneath my arms, under my armpits. I feel that stretch. And then if I have the room, I'm going to send my hips back further. Maybe my head comes in front of the chair. My torso sinks even a little lower. My shoulder blades draw together more on my back, really intensifying that stretch there. Perhaps I even reach my thumbs down toward the back of my neck. And of course, I'm breathing this whole time. And then as I exhale, I'll press my elbows into the chair to lift myself back up. So that's a pretty intense stretch for the shoulders. It can really help to start opening up our shoulders for dog pose. Puppy pose is similar to the shape of dog pose in the upper body. So basically from the hips or waist up, your body is going to be in that dog pose shape. And then the hips move back, but they stay in the air just like we did. In fact, what we did is really just a puppy pose variation focused on the elbows. Now we're going to do it, or focused on the shoulders with the elbows bent. Now we're going to do it with the arms straight. So starting in the same way, but this time our hands will be on the chair. I actually like to grip my hands with the chair a little bit, or grip the chair with my hands a little. Walk the knees back to send the hips back. And you can push your chair away from you if that makes it easier to start to lower a long torso so that your head comes between your arms. And just like we did in the standing version of this with our heels on the mat, I'm not curling my back this way, or I'm not hammocking it this way. As much as possible, I'm keeping it really long, sending my hips back to the opposite side of the room. Again, keeping my armpits active and lifted. That's going to help keep my arms lifted. And then exhale, I'll start to walk my knees back in.